Warm welcome and good morning and good evening, depending on where you are right now. It's evening here in Sweden, and I'm sitting here by the fireside, and I'm waiting to take part of this very interesting chat. So a warm welcome to all who are joining us here today to this Nordic IndTech talk. My name is Daniel Bokvist, and I work at Automation Region, and I'm here together with Malin Rosqvist from the Strategic Innovation Program, Process Industrial IT and Automation. Let's call it PIA from here on. Okay.
Well done, Daniel.
This Nordic IndTech talk is the second of a series of events organized by the Automation Region and PIA together with the Nordic Innovation House in Silicon Valley. And for you who are new to Automation Region, I can just mention that Automation Region is a Swedish innovation cluster that consists of more than 150 member companies, but the surrounding network and environment, of course, includes partners in all of Sweden, as well as in Europe and the United States. And Automation Region and all of its members share the common interest to create conditions for sustainable and innovative automation solutions. But as do you at PIA, right, Malin?
We agree on all of that, so most definitely. Process Industrial IT and Automation, that's what we do. The Strategic Innovation Program is funded by Vinnova, which is a Swedish innovation agency, together with the Swedish Energy Agency and Formas. Our aim is to develop Swedish process industry and to enforce competitiveness and to continue to be world-leading in an automated digital world. So the theme for today is IndTech, a definition of where the existing automation and IT base meets the new digital development. IndTech means technology on the factory floor, analysis of big data, mobility, cloud solutions, and artificial intelligence. There is a lot of talk about IndTech being an industrial revolution and that digitalization is overturning everything. But IndTech is rather about strengthening existing technology that has been built up over the years. However, this does not mean that you can continue as usual. Introducing IndTech often requires a new mindset in areas like competence, business models, and also new constellations of collaboration. I think that's the reason we're here tonight.
Yeah, that most definitely. And I'll say that's enough about us. I know that you're eager to start hearing about the real experts here. So it's time to get started. So I recommend you to grab your favorite cup of coffee, tea, or maybe some Swedish glögg and gingerbread, and enjoy listening into this fireside chat. And with that, I would leave you in the good hands of Oskar Mörke from Nordic Innovation House. Great to have you with us, Oskar.
Thank you, Daniel and Malin. Pleasure to be here. So yeah, great little introduction about both PIA and Automation Region. Just a quick introduction of Nordic Innovation House as this unique collaboration between the 5 Nordic countries. I'm located in Nordic Innovation House Silicon Valley, where we act as a co-working and resource center for approximately 160 Nordic members. And it's super excited to see IndTech as a new focus area. And in this talk, we'll discuss how emerging technologies will transform the industry sector globally, and deep diving into topics such as challenges and opportunities related to gathering and analyzing, leveraging industry data. And also we'll be answering questions in the Q&A, and this is also recorded. And with that said, I think it's, as you said, Daniel, it's time to dig deeper into the experts.
Yes, let's hear from them.
So the first panelist, we want to introduce Eva Petursson as a research and innovation manager from SSAB. And Eva works with questions such as how to increase competitiveness in markets, such as well as decreasing climate footprint for SSAB, and frequently in collaboration with academia, suppliers, and customers. So welcome, Eva.
Thank you.
And next off, we have Isha Bhatt, who's Chief Data Officer at Volvo Cars, and heads the data analytics team with a purpose to empower the company to make better products, services, and decisions by leveraging data analytics. And her real passion is building products to solve customer pain points. So welcome, Isha.
Thank you.
Next off, we have Bjorn Johnson, Hub Manager, Northern Europe Process Industrial, Head of Industrial Automated Division in ABB in Sweden. And Björn has worked with industrial automation his entire career and currently responsible for ABB Industrial Automation Department in Sweden, supporting customers with instruments, automation, optimizations of their industrial processes. And besides this, Bjorn has several board positions and is also the board member of the Sunderleap Simon Chairman of Automation Region. So welcome, Bjorn.
Thank you.
And next off, we have Vahan Tchakerian, who's Senior VP Global Sales, Cogniac, which is a Silicon Valley-based scale-up, utilizing the latest AI technology to build inspection workflows. And Cogniac offers enterprise-class AI-based deep learning software, automating visual inspection tasks to human-level accuracy and beyond. So welcome, Vahan.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
And lastly is Dave Nakamura from AstraZeneca, Head of Information Technology in the San Francisco Bay Area. And Dave oversees R&D, commercial operations sites, and sits on various internet, digital, and data consortiums. So welcome, David.
Thanks.
So now, gosh, sorry, it was a lot of reading. It's hard. I haven't met any one of you, but it's a pleasure to get to know you and to read up a little bit about your experience and your organizations. So great and a pleasure to have you here. And the general question we'll begin with, we'll start a little bit with this, as Eva called it before, as kind of a conversation. And the first general question we have is, what impact will the new emerging technologies such as AI, data analytics, 5G have on your industry? And how do you take advantage of that? And I think this is a question that this whole field is about in this talk about these emerging technologies. So Björn, why don't you start off?
Yes, thank you. I mean, when we look, in general, we are active in many industrial segments, but when we look in general, we see that there is a possibility to improve productivity with up to 40% using new technologies with AI and analytics. And of course, that also requires connectivity and networking and other things. So there's a huge potential, and there's also, let's say, many projects going on in the industry where we see that this is happening and aiming towards reaching that. But there's also, you could say, a little bit difficult embedded into, let's say, all systems that are at place already now. I mean, we see that possibly, up to 70% of all data generated in industrial plants are not used today because it's not contextualized in the right way, or it's in an old legacy systems, it's difficult to access. So there's, of course, the potential is there, but it's not so easy to get there.
And Eva here, if I could just totally agree with Björn. As a steel making company and also with great close contact with our customers, this is really what we see. There is great potential and visualizing for us, I think, what would we do if we knew in real time, we knew everything? What actions could we take to be more, to increase productivity, to be more optimized within our production, also in our customer base? How could we use products in steel more optimized? So I think the vision of what this would mean, also linking sustainability to that is great, but we have the systems that we have, so we need to kind of start somewhere. And for me, being in research innovation, I think that the platform, we talked about PIA in the introduction, the platform of looking into the tools and try and get a feel of how this would work in our system is really, really important. And it's a great part of the strategy for SSAB in taking this new technology and possibilities to our heart and to our production.
So, it's interesting. This is Vahan. So to piggyback off of what Eva is saying, right, it's a real great segue to, in Cogniac's case, we built the company around the ability to use, say, visual assets to be able to make determinations of how you're working. And today, you know, for our company, we serve this industrial inspection, manufacturing inspection world. And products are becoming more complex. They have more inspection steps, and it's really difficult for the human capital to keep up, right? So our platform sort of offers this human slash, you know, AI platform working together to deliver this AI connectivity. And with the vision of the, you know, today's leaders wanting to integrate Industry 4.0 practices in their infrastructure, right? This is kind of a great connection between, again, how does the future look, and how do you tailor an environment where you're making the best possible decision in real time, again, like Eva said, where instantly, under a second, you know how your process is going, where you can stop a line, make adjustments, but you've got that real-time data available to you at super, super high accuracy. So Eva, you're smiling, so you're happy to hear this.
No, and I think that when we talk about this, and when we visualize and understand that this would be a possibility, we really can see the benefits. But also, as Björn brought up, we struggle with how to implement this, and where to start, and what do we need to have, because we have and this is all that Malin also said, we have invested for a long time in the production facilities that we have.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we are seeing too, where we have the data. We have a lot of data. It's not consistent, it's not accessible, and it's not sorted for people to take actionable insights.
No.
And I think
and we understand that we need to go there, and that we want to go there, but we need to kind of, where do we start, and how do we prioritize? How can we do that, I mean, in a smart way?
And I think, you know, with the tools available today, maybe like Isha said, you know, the data is there, what do you do with it? I think maybe until a short while ago, those tools were not available. Now with the ability of using AI and the neural network, using the convolutional neural network, you're really able to do this deep learning component, again, to be able to access your data and make good value of it.
Yeah, and something to add, like what I'm going through right now is, as I said, we have the data, but if you look at the data life cycle, from storing it in the cloud to accessing it, privacy, security, and then taking insights and closing the feedback loop and executing on it. There's so many companies and so many tools. Even that itself is like, which one do you pick? Because everyone is kind of a little bit niche, and you really need to kind of have a strong strategy and then kind of break it into smaller parts and say, okay, I'm going to go for cloud first. Once I'm going to put my data in the cloud, next I'm going to go and see how can I take it from the cloud and use it for the different teams. And then once I start using it, then I can say, how do I close the feedback loop from 6 months to 2 weeks? So it has to be a very structured scientific process. And a lot of companies have done it. I think we are just a little bit behind, and we are catching up to that.
Yeah, and I think it's really, and you know, just to chime in and build on everyone's comments, that I think it's really important, like, not to get too trapped into the tools game, right? Like, you know, you're just, what is the best tools, and you really have to keep a vision of what your real goals are and what your aspirations are. You know, I'm from pharma, so, you know, our overall vision is, you know, it's really about speed to patient, right? But it's same thing like no other industry, you're trying to get to your customers, right? How do you take that product, right, from an idea to an actual, like, being shipped to a consumer? And, you know, the drug process is quite complicated, takes, you know, years. So I think what average drugs take between 7 to 10 years to hit the market if they actually succeed. And so we actually have a high failure rate as well. So where we can leverage tools, right, or disease capabilities, and being really kind of problem focused, if you will, right, but maintaining that vision is really key to kind of, you know, utilizing what we can, what is out there.
I think it, I mean, to continue that, I think it's extremely important now. I mean, if you look at the typical process industry where I'm active, a mill in any industry that has been around for a long time, they typically sit with a tube electrical motor. Because when you invested in the production system over time, you did not standardize enough. So you optimize each project by itself somehow. And then you end up with, too many spare parts somehow, a typical situation. And now we see the same thing a little bit with data, because you have not had the right structural approach with your, let's say, real-time system on site. And when that is, let's say, we see customers who are successful, they've been, let's say, they have focused a lot on how they structure the data at the lowest level. And when that is done, so the real-time system is, let's say, structured in a perfect way, then to closing the loop, getting the data to the cloud in a well contextualized way is easy, and then back again once you have done your analysis. So there's a lot. There will be a lot of focus going forward on making sure that you have your data represented in the right way already from scratch when you start to build your project day one, basically.
So what would you say is like, if we differentiate between the cloud providers and the people that provide you with the cloud infrastructure and the AI tools and the IndTech companies or AstraZeneca, maybe you can roll on that, David.
Could you repeat that again, actually?
I mean, if we discuss things as like moving things to the cloud, we also have the kind of the cloud infrastructure and the cloud providers. And what's the specific roles of taking this emerging technology from a cloud provider perspective, or from the company itself for your AstraZeneca?
Yeah, as far as I'm trying to just understand your question a little bit better. So are you trying to take a perspective of, if I was a vendor trying to engage pharma about needs or tools, or is it kind of in that realm what you're asking for?
I mean, when we're discussing the emerging technologies, like your company's AI, data analytics, you play a role, but also the cloud providers and the technology, like where do you differentiate yourself between them?
Yeah, AstraZeneca, we're a drug company, right? We're not a tech company. We don't have in-house, our development in-house is very small. So we're heavily reliant on our technology partners. Sorry, I didn't understand your question a little bit earlier. So, we work with, we have active collaborations with technology companies because of that, right? That's not our primary focus. We've got some AI capabilities in-house, but I wouldn't call them like cutting edge, type of technology. And that's what we really rely on our partnerships for, right?
To add to that, I think all parts are needed somehow. Of course, AstraZeneca, you have a lot of domain knowledge of what you do, and the same with Cogniac, SSAB, and Volvo. The one who's expert on their own process or products or system needs to be involved, and I think that's one key when you start to embark on this journey, that let's say the deep process knowledge and understanding is key. For success. If you start in the other end with someone was mentioning that with focusing on the tools and platforms, then probably you will not succeed, not as well at least. So I think to answer your question, all these pieces are needed, but of course you have to start with the end user and the process, and see what are the actual needs that you need to address.
And again, I totally agree with you, Bjorn, and that is also again when we do collaborations with now on the research arena with people who are into AI and machine learning, we really feel that our people need to be super involved in order for this to make sense, and this is a new type of collaboration for us, but it's really, really crucial. I also see that going forward, when we look into what kind of competence do we need in the system and in the company, I also see that maybe we need to combine kind of the education and the PhDs and the master students, and with learning both about the core that is in the company, but also the tools to kind of combine that in a way that our personnel maybe don't have today.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what we are, I mean, to your point on competence, what we're seeing is that, especially in Gothenburg, we need more of the data scientists and that kind of skill set. But we are tapping into resources that we already have. We have folks who are looking at autonomous driving. So they're already looking at machine learning from the vehicle perspective. And then they're thinking, can we train them and can we change or shift the competence for these folks who are already have the domain expertise and provide the machine learning AI expertise and move them over.
How do we combine the
Yeah, the other thing, when we were talking about external AI tools and technologies, I think the other, to what David said, it's very important to understand the vision and see how some of these technologies are applicable to us. So we were talking to some external partners and they're giving us use cases of Amazon or Walmart or e-commerce, and they were selling us their tools. But if you look at the volume that Amazon or Walmart or e-commerce has, compared to the volume that a car company has, it's very different. Our needs are very different. So it's always important to keep that in mind because there's so much out there, but bringing it back to what is fundamental to your company, what is your mission, and how do you want to drive it is very important to stay grounded, because it's very easy to get excited and say, oh yeah, AI, data, I'm going to go into this whole journey.
You know, I think
I think that education is so key to this, and just the awareness. I can't tell you how many you know, I have to explain to people there's a difference between ML and AI, and if you don't know the difference,
yes,
right,
when you go engage with a vendor, how productive is that conversation really going to be?
Yeah, or a business analyst and data scientist, because I get requests, can you give me 5 data scientists? I'm like, what problem do you want to solve?
Exactly.
I think what's interesting about all this space about innovation is that innovation in itself is disruptive, right? You're changing a way somebody's doing something. So most of innovation is really educating your, you know, a group of people, your customer, your internal people. And then as part of collaboration, you're bringing in different people with different subject matter expertise, whether it's, again, in our case, the platform for AI and deep learning, to working with our customers who are subject matter experts, to integrators who put the solution together, to camera companies that have to capture the right images for that visual data, right? So it's about how you bring everybody together to work together for that common solution. But again, you know, with innovation, it's really, you know, it's a disruptive space. So it's all about educating the right people and bringing the right experts together to collaborate.
No, and that they understand each other's kind of area a little bit, but use the expertise of the different persons. I agree.
Yeah, and just building on some of the other comments, the one thing about a lot of the technology partners that at least I've been engaging with, a lot of them are very naive to the pharmaceutical business, right? And to Isha's comment, it works for Amazon. I'm like, well, we don't have anywhere near that kind of volume. You know, we've got manufacturing, and they're comparing systems like on bottling lines, which is, you know, like Coca-Cola. We're not Coca-Cola. So, but I would say the one thing about working with a lot of the vendors, they are really naive about the business, right? And so we spend a huge amount of our time trying to educate our partners about, you know, what pharma is like and what the drivers are. You know, we're a heavily regulated industry by the government, by multiple governments, and you know what we do has to be in alignment, right? And you know, we're actually have, you know, patients that we have, people that we really need to care. You know, really, you know, drug safety is paramount to everything that we do. So our priorities are vastly different, right? From just saying like, oh, you know, I need to improve OEE, or I just need to improve my COGS. You know, it's not that simple for the pharma industry, right? So being more educated is definitely, it's a two-way street, right? Both for us as technology consumers, but also for the vendors, right, who are trying to, you know, help us form partnerships.
Yeah, very much so.
I mean, this piece of collaboration that several has mentioned now, I think is a very interesting aspects of the digitalization that's happening. I mean, I see a lot of fantastic innovation happening within the industrial sector, especially in Sweden, but also other countries where a lot of the innovation happens between organizations. So in let's say collaboration across multiple organizations, you are able to innovate a lot and make, I mean, significant productivity and sustainability gains. I mean, due to the fact that you can share data in a different way and integrate across the value chain. I think one great example where I'm part right now is this sustainable underground mining project in Sweden, where we, let's say, are five companies from the Swedish mining sector, world leading companies who collaborate and create a production system which aims to be 50% more productive, completely fossil free, and all electric and digitalized and autonomous underground. And that's let's say only possible due to digitalization and due to the fact that we work in a different way. So the organizational, let's say, structure or boundaries are also changing a little bit in the innovation scheme going forward.
Yeah, it's great. And yeah, we talk a lot about collaboration, and I think we all agree that collaboration plays a big part. So, but maybe someone else has like with these great projects that they've been experiencing.
You know, for me, the collaboration is about getting the best solution through a combination of different inputs and expertise, right? So, you know, we collaborate to have, at the end of the day, you know, a customer success. So I think, you know, more so than ever, I think collaboration is so key with, you know, delivering the right solutions for our customers and understanding their requirements. Like David said, you know, people walk in and they don't know their pharma business, right? So you have to understand what they're talking about. So it's an education of back and forth, which I look at all as collaboration. So I think it's super key.
There's also oh, sorry, go ahead.
Also, I just want to, another thing is that you could be in a collaboration where you kind of enable each other to do the journey. I just want to mention the huge project that we are now together with the mining company LKAB and the energy company Vattenfall to be totally fossil free through the value chain of producing steel, which is, we couldn't do it each separate company, so we complement each other, and we the only way to do it, as Björn also explained, the only way to do this is by collaborating. So it's also using this is a value chain thing, and just to mention that I totally also agree that collaboration to do great things and to do things in a new way is key.
Yeah, you know, if I could add one more thing about collaboration, at least from my experience, transparency is key, right? So if you're open about what you're doing, where you're going, you get there that much quicker with everybody being open and then creating this trusting environment. I think, you know, we've been through a few accelerator programs, and what I find is that whenever people are open about what they're doing, where they're going, and whether they include you or exclude you, that openness really creates this environment of working together.
Yeah, and I think the one that I know this is more of a big company speak, but the one thing about having a vision, there's also this concept of, you know, what's in it for me, right? So what is that value proposition, right, of this collaboration, right? What am, you know, like if you have, like this is internal collaboration or external collaboration. So I'm going to form a partnership either internally or externally. You know, how is this going to benefit either the company, my team, or, you know, where is the value in doing something like this? And so I think that's something to really identify upfront along with that vision. All right.
Especially when we are a little bit we're not used to doing it in this way. We understand that we need to move forward, and we are not used to that. We are used to solving things ourselves. So that really means that it needs to be clear. Who owns the results? What happens when this is a success?
Yeah, I think that's a whole different discussion about what does success look like, what's done, you know, and I think one of the big challenges about collaboration is setting those milestones, right? What does actually good look like? And having this, I know people use these, I really hate catchphrases, but having an agile approach, right? You don't need a final product every time you reach a collaboration, right? If you want to say collaboration is more of a journey, right? You're going to hit different points of this journey, right? And you're going to find out possibly partway through the collaboration that this is not something that you really want to embark on anymore, right? And I think people have to really accept that internally. I mean, sometimes we say, oh, the project failed, but it's like, I think we really need to get away from that word of failure, right? It's like, look, we took a journey, didn't work out. We learned a lot about why this worked and why it didn't work. And we're going to keep that moving forward, right, for another collaboration, right? So there's a huge cultural aspect of it, this as well.
And I think the next question is actually about just the measure of success. So you're all part of transforming a specific industry. How do you measure success in your field? Maybe Isha, you can start off.
I think for us, the biggest thing is customer satisfaction. Coming from Volvo, which is a company which really, really takes pride in its brand and the loyalty from the customers, customer satisfaction becomes number one. Now, it's tricky to measure customer satisfaction, and then we have other metrics to kind of start thinking about number of sales or NPS score. So those are metrics, but I think customer satisfaction is number one for us.
Mm-hmm. I would completely agree with Isha, right? Customer success is number one for how you measure success. And then the second part is when you're delivering a solution, how is this solution scaled through the customer sites, right? For Cogniac's activities, as I was saying earlier, right? We serve the industrial inspection, manufacturing inspection, safety, and so forth, right? So imagine to have a company that adopts your technology first, and they say, oh, well, you know what? We can apply it here, we can apply it there, right? The scaling of that also through the company is another level of success and validation of whatever we're all delivering to our customers, being internal or external.
Yes, and that is also being in a business providing steel for customers. Sometimes coming with a new product, it takes a long time for it to kind of come to scale, because we are in a conservative and customers need kind of a proof of concept, and they need to understand how this new steel quality or whatever can benefit. So I also think that we try to look at customer satisfaction, absolutely, customer but not only by volume, but also do we have success with this customer that we spend more time with, and that we develop together their product with our product, and that also needs to be measured, because it may take years sometimes for us before it actually comes to a volume and it's spread, like you also talked about. So
I think another thing for us is when we talk about customer satisfaction, traditionally car companies have been so vested in building customizations. Like, I'll give each customer exactly what they want. And now as we're moving to more EVs or electrical cars and focusing more on newer technologies, the customization on individual colors or materials and all of that comes in our way. So it's an interesting phase that we're going through as we are transforming to define what does customer satisfaction mean and simplify to the bare bones and almost start over.
I see a little bit to build on what David said earlier here, that, I mean, when you start a collaboration journey like this, you are not fully sure, let's say, how the end result will look completely. I mean, you embark on a journey in one direction, you have an idea of what the end result will be and some KPIs. So, and this means that our, let's say, success must be linked to our end customer success even more. So let's say we are only successful if our end customer are successful with that project. I mean, if you go back where I mean, previously we would have typically when we would design a system, it would be more according to a predefined specification, and then it's easy to measure, let's say, success according to that specification, and then maybe that leads to let's say increased productivity for our end customer or not, but we have at least delivered according to what was required. But when you don't have that specification ready, but you collaborate to create that specification, then our KPIs needs to be the same as our end customer KPIs. So I see a trend where we are, let's say, getting more and more, let's say, rewarded on, let's say, value that our end customer sees. So which, I mean, in the end is same as customer satisfaction.
Yeah, I think for the drug industry, we've got a lot of different types of, well, interesting types of measurements, you know, like, I mean, I mentioned speed to patient, but, you know, like drug safety, it'd be great to bring more drugs to the market where we have less, you know, side effects basically, right? We're, I'm not sure how many people here follow the pharmaceutical business, but there's concepts like precision medicine, right? So why do drugs work in certain people and not work in others, right? Or they have different effects, right? So, you know, trying to incorporate things like, you know, looking at genetics, right, into drug treatments, you know, that itself is a big data type of initiative. But how do we bring that, right, to fruition, and how does that become like everyday medical practice, right? Right now, that is just a budding idea, right? How do we, you know, revolutionize or disrupt, right? There are concepts now about how do we bring those to market and how do we make those commonplace, right?
Yeah, very good answers, everyone. Yeah, it's super important to measure, and it's super important to, and we also have the aspect of sustainability brought up in the comments by one of the participants, and I do believe that we all work with sustainability, and I also read it from some of your bios of your work with sustainability. Maybe we can have a little round of discussing sustainability in this.
I would say there's some really quick, easy. Sorry, my cat's like jumping on my lap. So if you see little ears pop up and clawing at my leg,
It
so
goes very well with the fireplace.
yes, exactly. Yes. The one thing I would say, I'll give you an example about sustainability, very simply about clinical trials. Before, I would say years ago, before data became more digital, you know, when we ran, we had a patient on clinical trial, we probably had about 10,000 pages, if not more, of documentation associated with the patient. And we have to actually keep that for basically lifetime. So you can imagine how much paper storage that can possibly take up, especially when you're running like a 30,000 person trial. So I remember one day when I was still in my scientist days, we're picking up, somebody was being sent to pick up the paperwork to be archived, and it literally was an 18-wheeler truck filled to the absolute top of just paper records. And it wasn't just one truck. And so, you know, getting into a digital space, right, saved us a huge amount of paper, plus, you know, like everything about digitizing data, about trying to find things is, and, you know, the thing is, we're running more trials now, we're running more dynamic trials. And so, you know, with sustainability, the more we digitize, the less paper impact we have, right? No printing, no ink, no. So it's huge in that aspect. The other things that we're actually looking at from a sustainability perspective is actually, we're trying to find like alternatives to some of the things that we're doing from an environmental impact, right? You know, can we do better studies or modeling on different types of packaging, right? How we move things right within our supply chain. Some of our ingredients, I know like one of our sustainability efforts is that some of the inhalers we're making now, right? We're trying to find substitutes so they're not greenhouse gases, for example, right? Even though it's a very small and minor kind of contribution, at least it's something that we're trying to do. And, you know, that was through a lot of effects of, you know, data mining, right, kind of efforts, right? Trying to find, you know, suitable chemicals that were safe and also, you know, had the same effect, right?
You know, I'd like to give a quick, sorry, Isha, please go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
So, I'd like to give a real direct example about sustainability with one of our customers, right? It's a large automotive OEM. They use our product to what they call catching splits, which is basically a stamping process. You have this piece of aluminum that could have potentially cracks in it, right? Our technology is being used to detect these right as things come off of a stamping line so that you're not investing more in more parts and sub-assembly and final assembly to where sometimes you have to even scrap a vehicle or multiple vehicles because there's a safety issue with that, right? In our view, elimination of all that waste is, contributing to, sustainability in a manufacturing world, right? So it's been really gratifying to see that, we can have a little impact, some impact on reducing waste.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us is definitely moving to EV. And we'll see a huge improvement in our carbon footprint and sustainability. But then we're kind of trying to deal with afterlife for batteries. And that's such a new space that, again, that kind of brings more questions on how sustainable are we, or what more can we do?
I think being a company working with digitalization, automation, robotization, and electrification, I mean, all our solutions aim to support our customers on their sustainability journey, whether it's electrical charging infrastructure or a more energy efficient motor in a steel mill, or a big automation system that helps to improve productivity and reduce wasted energy, basically. But what I see as a very, so numerous examples, but what I see as a very interesting trend also is that among our younger employees, I hear a lot of them join ABB because they see it as a place where they could be to help the world to be more sustainable. And I think it's same for many other companies, which is great. And that also puts a lot of requirements on us as a company. And let's say we have to make sure that we are sustainable, not only supporting our customers with our solutions, but also in-house with everything we do in our own factories, our own buildings, how we travel, how we meet. I mean, it gives a lot of, let's say, it puts a lot of demand on the organization as such overall there, which is great. I mean, it's good.
Yeah, and I think with a lot of the tech that's coming out, I mean, the one thing we're really trying to keep on the forefront of our minds is actually the digital waste, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as people like refreshes, I think everyone has cell phones, right? It'd be great if they lasted 10 years, but the reality is a lot of people like are refreshing it every 1 to 2 years, right? How do we, those are like really difficult challenges, right? Like, earbuds, right? Are they really made out of materials that are recyclable, right? And so when it comes to like consumers and products, right? Are we keeping that right into our products, right? Are we thinking about what's next, right? What happens after, a patient, throws the packaging away, right? Is it biodegradable, right? Or can it be, right? Because it's, again, we're regulated, but the thing is is it a possibility? And we have to be able to challenge ourselves to actually ask those questions, right? And yes, it's going to take more effort, but we have to keep sustainability on, it's our planet, right? It's our lifestyle, it's our future, right? So it has to be a key fundamental, right, to how we think and how we approach solutions.
Yes, I agree. And for me, sustainability and using new tools and new possibilities, it's really about optimizing and reduce waste, both in terms of our production of steel. It comes to all the way to manufacturing customer products using our steels. How could that be more optimized? How can we how can we make sure using data and information and knowing about how our products are being used by customers or users of the trucks or the products in steel? How can we optimize that? How can we, using data, and this is a vision that we have been working with actually support by PIA, that we started to talk about the innovation program, how through the whole life cycle of a steel, all the way to dismantling and recycling, what could we use data? What needs to be in place? How could we optimize the whole circle and kind of the resource that steel is as a material in the world? It really is important that we utilize this to the fullest, especially us being a producer of steel from iron ore. We really need to take care of the natural resources that we have and utilize it to its maximum in our production, in manufacturing of products in steel, in using products in steel, all the way to the end. So for us, I think we have a really big focus on sustainability. We are also, a steel industry is responsible for 7% of the world CO2 emissions. So we really need to do something. And optimization, both in all the life cycle, is one thing. We're also in this project that I mentioned to try to actually totally do a new route of manufacturing, and that's a huge project for us. So sustainability top from research and innovation within SSAB.
And we received another question from the audience, and that is if you can comment on if there's any initiatives to standardize the way data is labeled and structured, global, local, or industry standards, to be able to interlink data from various sources and fields.
Maybe I can comment there. I mean, there are many initiatives going on globally in several different forums for this. So there are, let's say, several associations working on this. I mean, we have one initiative in Sweden that I'm part of, led by the industry, called the Swedish Industrial Interoperability Association, where we, let's say, try to map out all these initiatives that exist and then try to formulate the standard. Because as I guess the one asking the question might be an end user who is sitting there with, let's say, I mean, hundreds of suppliers with their own data standard in the end for documentation and for how to represent and how to integrate. So this is a key area to work on, and there are, say, many associations addressing this, but not one global initiative, unfortunately.
Yeah, I would agree with Bjorn. There are many initiatives going on. I think it's still early part of the journey, and it would need a few years to consolidate and have that consistency that all of us are looking for.
The data labeling is also a, company by company sort of thing, right? Not everybody has the same way they go about how do they look at their assets and so forth. So, maybe labeling cannot be so generalized, right? It's more, at least from my perspective, it's more company specific, and then you tailor a solution around how that company does their own labeling, right? So I don't know how far we are from a generalized way of labeling, but I think it's probably more difficult because every company has their own way of processing data and what's important to them.
Yeah, as data is moving to the cloud, I think there are frameworks or definitions that companies can use to kind of store and label data. But I mean, it's still very general, and then each company would have to modify or customize it to their own data sets.
Yeah, data is so contextual, right? So, how you tag, how you manage your metadata is really based on, right, the fundamentals of like what kind of questions are you, what are you trying to ask, right? What are you trying to measure? And trying to, what are you trying to normalize against, right? There's some data that is just incredibly messy to begin with, right? To be honest with you, right? And is it worth, how clean do you really want it, right? You can spend a lifetime trying to normalize data sets, right? That are just, you know, but it has, at the end of the day, it could actually have no value, right? So it's keeping in mind, like, what, you know, what contextually do you want to do with this data, and how do you want to manage it, right? So, you know, metadata management is another talk in itself, but, you know, it can be very complex depending on what you're trying to deal with. But to Isha's point, like, having a relative framework of how to approach the data is very key. And it has to be refined over time, right? You're going to put a framework out, right? And it's just going to have to go through iterative cycles for maturity.
And I think data hierarchy becomes really important, because all data sets can be put into a systematic hierarchy, which would definitely help.
Yeah, and I think one of the most important things is you need people that really understand your data, and I think that's the biggest thing. You know, looking at, you know, millions of rows of data is, and you can crunch it and run tons of statistics, run algorithms, right? But if someone is not there to interpret the data, right, it's like, is this real? Is this significant? You know, those are more, to me, those are more important factors, right? Than just the simple tagging of data, because, you know, you can tag, retag, you can put algorithms in to even put tags on them yourselves. You can put AI engines to, you know, mine the data and put flags in as you want. So to me, it's, what's more important is, like, what's the interpretation, right? Can you interpret your own data?
Yeah, and I think we're heading into a little bit more talk about the kind of ecosystem and I know you, Bjorn, are as the chairman of Automation Region, and we're sitting here at PIA Automation Region and all your home organizations. If maybe perhaps you, Bjorn, could start, but what do you think how do you see the role of the ecosystem?
I think, typically the organization you mentioned now are very important for the ecosystem. I mean, these organizations like Automation Region, PIA, and so on, they are a key part to do, create awareness in the organization for different, say, individuals. It's also extremely important for, education, and they're also good platform for connecting people to start collaborations and to generate ideas, and then also very useful vehicles to turn these ideas into initial project and let's say generate funding or let's say seed funding, so you can start to develop those ideas into some demonstration or pilot or a real life example. So these organizations as facilitators are, let's say, key to speed up the collaboration in the ecosystem.
I would say from a giant business kind of perspective, we have a lot to learn about how we can be more effective partners. I can be honest with you that I'm sure some other people probably laugh at this, but, you know, when we go into collaborations, right, you know, our cybersecurity team is going to send a collaborator, you know, 1,000-page questionnaire, or our lawyers are going to go, you know, send them, you know, thousands of pages of paperwork, right, to look at a confidentiality agreement. You know, those are major barriers to our innovation, right? Because, you know, we see something interesting, it goes off to cybersecurity and our lawyers for months. And, you know, in that time, you know, we've wasted a lot of time, and all we want to do is just to have a discussion and have a pilot. Right, we don't even want to go any further, but there's a lot of things that we have to do internally as a big company, right? To how do we kind of foster this kind of more of an innovative kind of collaboration kind of culture, right? And having those, I don't know if you can say, like, different stage gates of collaboration, right? So could we have just like a very light legal agreement with folks, right? And say there's a blanket, you know, we'll just go through this really quickly. And, or, we can't just have a one size fits all type of process, right? When we work with collaborators.
It's also learning from piloting, and in the smart steel vision that I try to pilot with our customers. What information would they benefit from our steels on their Industry 4.0 journey, and how could we collaborate on that? And what are the a lot of talk about liability and what is the business model? If we get this process from processing our steels with the support from data, and what's the liability for the end product? Who takes responsibility for that when we're mixing and what is the business model? Those are the things that also need to kind of be, so not only from what is possible from a technical point of view in terms of optimization and knowing everything and doing things better, it's also a lot of other things that need to be in place.
Yeah,
there's
go ahead, David.
Oh no, I was gonna just build on that about the IP type of perspective. When we work with like ML and AI companies, like who owns the data is a big thing. And using having some vendors like, oh no, we're gonna keep your data set and use it to, refine our algorithm and then sell it to another company. And at that point, pharma says, we're not, that's a, it's not possible. So those are a lot. There are still a lot of barriers to collaboration in that aspect, right? But with business models of respective partners. Sorry, Isha.
Yeah, well, I think what has worked for us is the whole R&D or innovation center that we have created in Silicon Valley. And this gives us, it's a smaller team, it gives us the flexibility to test and prototype and pilot and work with some of the new emerging technologies that are coming up here, like the startups or even universities. We have so many partnerships with Stanford or Berkeley, where they're PhD students who have a new idea or a new project, and we mentor, coach, and work with them, and then try and simulate the idea just in our cars and our products over here before impacting the production or the execution of our cars that are happening, that are planned. So that has worked really, really well for us.
Yeah, and pre-pandemic, I hate
yes.
to say that.
Yes.
Pre-pandemic, my South San Francisco office, everything was ready to go. We had, we basically allocated space in our office, right, to host incubators. We were basically setting up an incubator lab in the building, both for tech and biotech, right, to be hosted and work alongside, AstraZeneca scientists, basically. But I hate to say, hopefully this will resume post-pandemic. So I'm looking forward. But that's, we really have to take advantage of our geographical location. I mean, I'm based here in Silicon Valley, but we do get questioned a lot. Like, your site costs a lot of money. What are you getting for that? And one of the things, it's the speed. What Isha talked about. The sites are relatively small compared to some of my counterparts, but we are much faster at delivery. The culture and the mindset about what it takes to pilot and test the technology, much more tech aware. And it's, especially with the pandemic, it's really easy to collaborate when the tech company is just a few kilometers away and in the same time zone.
Yeah, and looking at the clock now, we're already there. And so thank you so much for great discussions, and we'll have to continue this sometime. But now it's time for Malin and Daniel to just round up this talk.
Yes, thank you, Oscar, and thank you to all the speakers. I'm just sitting here enjoying the talk, I would say, and of course I have my glögg and my gingerbread here with me, so it's really, really interesting, and I hope you think so as well, all of you who are listening in. And if you missed anything, or if you would like to go back and listen again, or if you have some colleague that you really think need to listen to this, don't worry about it. The talk is being recorded and will be made available afterwards.
Exactly. And as we mentioned in the beginning, this Nordic IndTech talk is the second in a series of events on the topic of IndTech. And with these meetings, we set out to decrease the gap between world-leading process industry and automation companies in the Nordics and tech frontrunners from Silicon Valley. And we are really looking forward to creating a more sustainable next generation automation together.
Yes, that's the aim, and I hope every one of you will be with us to continue this journey ahead into the next year. But right now, Christmas is coming up, and hopefully all of you will have the chance to spend a calm and relaxing holiday with your family. But already in January, we will organize the next workshop on this topic. So make sure to mark it in your calendars already today. And until then, me and Malin and all of our colleagues at Automation Region, Pia and the Nordic Innovation House would like to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And let's meet again in January to continue this important work. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.